Good morning. Welcome to the allotment on this rather cool and a bit cloudy of an early June morning. I thought I would give you a little scoot around and show you what's going on at the allotment today. So far so good this year at the allotment. Things are going really well. I think it must be something about the soil this year. It's 5 years since we had this plot, and I feel as if the soil might have reached some kind of tipping point, and now it's really healthy and really full of nutrition for the plants, because everything, well, almost everything, is going really well. This is the bean border. I planted this about a week or so ago. It's doing absolutely fine. The beans are just settling themselves in. I've got a mix of runner beans and a few different types of French beans in here, but everything's looking fine. I still haven't managed to finish the frame for them to climb up, and as usual what I have done is awful. But never mind, my frames are always terrible, but they always work. And at the top end of that border are my peas, which they're just my pride and joy. I'm so happy with them. They look absolutely fabulous, crammed in like, and they're starting to flower. My only worry is that they're going to be all foliage and not too many peas. I know that can happen if your soil is too fertile, and there was quite a lot of chicken compost put on this border. Anyway, hoping for the best. They look great. I've got lots of different varieties of peas in here. I've got some yellow mange too. I've got let's think, I've got Kent Blue off Bill and Val. I've got Kelvedon Wonder. I've got not Lazy Housewife, that's the beans. Lots of varieties, hoping for a good crop. I've got this nice long narrow border that runs right along this fence right to the front of the allotment. Really I'm meaning it to be a big strawberry bed, but I didn't have enough plants this year, so I'm going to be propagating a lot more of my strawberries this year when the runners come off. In fact, they're starting to come off now. We've got one ripe strawberry which sadly either Mr. Slug or Mrs. Blackbird or somebody has had a good old chomp on. We might have to net them if that continues. As well as that, I had to find a space for some fennel plants. My allotment neighbour kindly gave me 10 fennel plants, which I love for the frondy foliage as much as I do for the bulb. I managed to squeeze these in, and as well as that, you can see my red currant is absolutely loaded with fruit. It has been getting nibbled by caterpillars on the leaves in some areas, but the fruit is stupendous. And I've got a single little ripe currant there starting. The broad beans are just so huge. It's definitely the biggest broad beans I've ever produced. Massive, packed together as well, same as the peas, so I hope they'll be all right. I'm starting to get the pods forming now, so hopefully it won't be too long before I can start taking a crop off these. In front of the broad bean border is the onion and garlic border. Onions, so pleased with them. Garlic, not so much. Let's have a look. I've never had much success with onions in the past. I mean, they always grow and I always get a crop, but they're always small, and I had been wanting to grow them from seed this year, but I never got round to it. I just put the sets in as I usually do in the autumn, but this year I could see I've had success. I've got the biggest onions I've ever had. Not all of them, a lot of them are still small, but I've got some real good sized ones, and so far so good. They have not started bolting. I've had about 3 that have bolted. Usually by now the onions are all bolting. In between my rows of onions also I've got beetroot interplanted. I was worried that the beetroot might, just sap some of the nutrition from the soil and stop the onions from growing, but certainly hasn't been the case. As I say, the onions are the best I've had. So as you see, everything is not rosy in the garden. Most things are, but the garlic isn't. It's got rust. I don't know why it gets it. I think we had it last year a little bit, but this is definitely the worst it's been. I'm leaving it for as long as I can, but I think once the leaves get past a certain point, being covered with rust, I think your bulbs stop growing. So I'm going to get some garlic from it, but I think they'll just be very small bulbs. I've tried digging down here to see what I've got, and there is a bulb, but it's just going to be small. I've also interplanted in between the garlic with spare tomato plants I had. I'm pretty pleased I've done that now, because the garlic will be coming out sooner than I anticipated, and that'll give the tomatoes plenty of room to grow. This second little strawberry patch is doing just fine. I'm not going to get much, like I say, this year in terms of strawberries. These plants all just went in, I think in the autumn, or was it the spring? I can't quite remember. Anyway, I'm just letting them get themselves established this year and hoping for a much bigger crop next year. This big patch here is the courgettes. Well, apart from my row of wild poppies that are in the middle, it's all courgettes. If you recall, I tried a little experiment whereby I planted these 3, in fact it was 6 courgettes out without hardening them off, and I put fleece over them. 3 of them are absolutely thriving now. 2 of them pretty poor. I don't exactly know what the problem is with those 2. It's quite possibly all this competition with the poppies beside them. The 3 that I planted on the other side, I planted out later and properly hardened off. They are still settling in. They've gone a little bit yellowed, but I think in another week or 2 they'll settle themselves down and they'll start firing away as well. And I've actually got my first flower on this courgette, so that's quite exciting. This is my little brassica cage. I haven't got much going on at the minute. I've got a few broccoli and sprouts after initially being hammered by the slugs. I think we've gotten over that stage. Got a couple of gaps there I need to put new plants in. And this area that I'm standing on now is going to be the other half of the brassica cage when I get it made. Yeah, as you see, this area hasn't been sorted at all. I'm just leaving this stuff in at the minute until I'm ready for the border, because weeds will grow no matter what, so I might as well let the ones that want to be there. These are leeks. I've left these in from last year. As you see, they've put up a nice good big leek scape. I'm just going to let them go to flower and hopefully collect some seed off those. But you know, in the next week or so, I'll be clearing this out apart from the leeks and putting in some more brassicas. I've got just more of the same. I've got sprouts, I've got broccoli, I've got calabrese. I'm not growing any cabbage this year because I got fed up. The last few years my cabbage has been poor, and there's just slugs in every layer of leaf that I take off the cabbage. There's slugs, which is not very nice, so I've gone off it for the minute. This border here is the squash border. Planted this a week or so ago. The squash are still settling in. I find with all these types of plants like courgettes and squash, the leaves yellow a bit once they've been planted from transplant shock, so they're still kind of at that stage. A couple of weeks and I'm sure they'll start firing away. I've tried to put smaller varieties in here, munchkin and uchigikuri, and I think I might have put some acorn squash, I'm not so sure. These are the potatoes behind here, and I'm a little bit worried about them. At first glance, I think everything looks all right. They seem good, in fact. But when you start to look a bit closer, I've got some concerns. I pulled these potato leaves up yesterday. I've been lying for 24 hours, so it's not quite so easy to see. But the leaves are yellowing and kind of crinkling and dying at the ends. Anybody know what that is? I don't think it's potato blight. I've had that before and I don't feel like it looked like this. But any advice would be gladly taken. If it's potato blight, I'll be devastated. That'll probably be my whole crop I'll lose. But one plant at a time seems to be getting like this. So every time I see one that looks a bit funny, I just pull it out. I've taken about 3 out already, but as I'm looking, I'm just wondering if I can see signs on the other plants. It seems to be mainly this first row, which were jazzy potatoes. I think they're second earlies. I've got King Edwards and I've got Maris Piper. I'm hoping they'll be all right, but really we'll just have to wait and see now. Yeah, I think this is an example of one here. The foliage just seems to suddenly wilt and look very droopy and sorry for itself, and the edges of the leaves get this brown and they seem to yellow slightly. This is the Asturian tree cabbage. I love it. It's been so great. I planted these last year, so I had all last season and this season. It's all trying to flower, but I just keep pulling off the flower heads and you get all these massive leaves. I use it mainly for the hens, that's the truth, but I did have it for the tea last night. It's fine. It's not quite as nice as proper cabbage. The leaves are a bit tougher, although I suppose if you take the smaller leaves they're probably better. But I've got another lot of this in a seedling tray at the minute to replace this lot, which will end, I presume, at the end of this season. Well, as you see, overall everything's doing really well. A couple of little dodgy things. I've also got masses of stuff in buckets scattered everywhere here in the garden. Mostly, do you know, I can't even remember what this is. It's squash, I think. I've got melons still to go into this trough. Tomatoes everywhere. Everything's grown well so far. Fingers crossed. Catch you next time. Bye. Oh, before you go, thank you very much, all my subscribers. I finally hit the 1,000 mark. Yay! Yeah, so thanks very much for subscribing. Catch you next time. Bye.